He's the general manager of the Houston Texans, and he's kind enough to join us right now. He is in his sixth year as the GM, but his fourth year is the dual role of executive vice president and general manager of the Houston Texans after being in the personnel department with the Patriots since 2001 up to that point. Nick Caserio on the program. Good to see you, Nick. How are you?
Rich, thanks for having us. Great to be here.
So
really appreciate it.
You were that personnel guy in 2001 that told Bill, yeah, you should stick with Brady. Were you that guy, Nick? You're that guy?
It's funny. I remember that first camp like it was yesterday. I didn't know anything. I still don't know anything, but that was a fun camp. I do remember that. Tom actually, it's interesting because like Damon was signed to be the backup. Heward, Tom was a third quarterback, and Tom had a really good training camp. And he emerged as a backup quarterback, and then everybody knows what happened, in a Jets game. So I had nothing to do with it. So
nice.
I think I'm better off because of it.
I was going to ask you that actually, Nick, because the word is that Brady had the best camp out of all the quarterbacks, and that so when it was time for him to get out there was a confidence level, not just obviously with Bill, but for the rest of the locker room, because they saw what Tom had done during the summer. That's the conversation these days. For years.
That's fair. No, that's all fair. He had a really good training camp, and I don't think anybody was necessarily surprised. Obviously, you don't know what's going to happen until players get the opportunity. I would say that hasn't changed, for whether it's any team in the league, any player, whenever they get the opportunity, it's up to them to take advantage of it. And, he certainly did that. And the rest is history, shall we say.
What would you share with us that you picked up from Bill that you use every day? Nick, anything?
There's a lot, Rich. I think it's just taking a big picture approach, kind of balancing whether the short-term kind of focus day-to-day relative to preparation, getting ready for the season, but also having an eye on a little bit of the future. So there's always that delicate balance. So we understand what the regular season entails, and our focus is on that. I would say in our roles, and he had the ability to balance off so many different things. You're kind of thinking about the present, but by the same token, having an eye on, the future. And in the end, trying to do what you feel is always best for the organization and the team. I would say that certainly resonated, just the way he was able to handle that. And he was so immersed in every aspect of the football operation. I can't say enough great things about what I learned being around him for all those years. Was fortunate to be around a lot of great people over the course of that period of time. I worked for Scott initially. Scott's the one that really hired me, Pioli,
right?
When I got my career started. But just to be around a lot of great people. I know it's cliche, but taking it one day at a time, and then I would say maintaining a certain level of consistency day to day, not getting too high, not getting too low. We are in a very, I would say, it can be emotional. There's a lot going on, but to be able to kind of stay right in the middle, that always really struck a chord. And I think that was something that, I kind of took notice of and have tried to apply in our own way and shape and form to my career and, some of the things that, I've been fortunate enough to be able to do.
Yeah, to be around Bill Belichick for as long as you were, and obviously Pioli being part of that front office for all those years. By the way, our radio audience is turning. We're talking with Houston Texans EVP and GM Nick Caserio. And the thing that Bill was always known for, among many, was saying goodbye to players that fans loved and still had some years left potentially before he thought that the curve was going down. Did you ever have a conversation with him about that, or anything that you saw that you do actually still use today and what you're doing for your roster?
Well, I think all of us league-wide that are in these positions, the reality is we're going to have to make a number of decisions over the course of the season, over the course of years. And it's never easy. And we have to sometimes make very difficult decisions, but we make decisions that we feel ultimately are in the best interest of the program, and at times maybe in the best interest for the players as well. They may not realize it at the time, but we're in a position where, again, going back to what I said a little bit earlier, kind of not take the emotion out, understanding that it's a people business in the end. So how you treat people, the conversations that you have, the relationships that you develop. I mean, that's part of it. Unfortunately, we're going to have to make decisions where we move on from players, we move on from staff, and that's always difficult. But you try to handle it in as a positive manner as possible, and not to go back to what we learned growing up. But the reality is just treat people with respect and dignity, and just be honest with them, and take the emotion out. And you're just trying to make the right decision with what you feel is the right information at the time. You might not agree, you might not see eye to eye, but in the end, that's part of our job and responsibility. And regardless of kind of what's going on externally outside of our building.
All right, let's talk about decisions you've made and decisions you still have to make with Nick Caserio, the Houston Texans GM, entering his 6th season in that role. Here on the Rich Eisen Show. Obviously, you've got a quarterback. When you want to talk about emotions, I mean, this is the biggest position and decisions that you could make that affects an entire team, an entire organization, fan base, and things of that nature. CJ Stroud is now in a position to get a contract extension. Where are you on that front, Nick?
Yeah, I mentioned this in kind of my introductory press conference here in training camp. I'd say, we've had some productive discussions over the course of the spring here. I think CJ, his first 3 years, he's done a really good job for us. D'Amico and I have both talked about this. We're glad he's our quarterback. And we understand there's a business side of football. So I'd say we're working through that. But I mean, overall, like I said, we've had productive conversations with his representatives. So my sense is we'll work through it here during the course of training camp. And if an agreement comes to fruition, great. If it doesn't, we kind of understand where we are moving forward. But, CJ's, I mean, I've said this on some different shows, but he had his best off season. I'd say he's having one of his better training camps as well. And I think you're seeing a growth and a maturation and development of a player, which you see throughout the course of their career. So, I mean, sometimes we lose track of, in his particular case, is still a young player. I mean, he's played 3 seasons, going into his 4th season, but every year you kind of start over. And, we're working through training camp right now. But, I mean, overall, CJ has done everything that we've asked him to do. There's a business component of this. And, that's something that, that's part of, in the end, my responsibility and my job. And, we'll work through it here and see, and see what happens here moving forward.
Okay, so is this something that could go into the season, do you think, or no?
We'll see. I don't want to put any timetables
Sure.
or kind of speculate about what may happen, when it might happen. I'd say, keep the dialogue moving. And at some point, if we get to a situation where, all right, it's not going to resolve itself, then, we push it out to, the off season or after the season. So, we'll work through it, kind of take it one day at a time, and, we'll see if we're able to reach an agreement here at some point.
Okay, and just one last here. Listen, it's a result-oriented business that you are in. We're all in, I guess. But, you don't raise banners there in Houston for making the second round of the playoffs, which, by the way, he has done every year of his career, which is rare for someone to come out of college to do something like that. And I understand there's markets and things of that nature. Do you need to see something more from him on the field to get to the number that you think everyone will be happy with?
Yeah, I think the reality is every player, I mean, they have to prove themselves every year. So I'd say overall, I mean, we're proud of the program that we've developed. We feel like we got a pretty good foundation in place with a lot of really good people. We have one of the best head coaches in the league. So we're proud of, I'd say, our program. We understand, look, in the end, everybody has the same goals and expectations, that you want to be playing meaningful football late in the season. So our focus right now is on training camp and really getting ready for the start of the season, which we had a pretty big challenge here in front of us. Week 1, against Buffalo has been, one of the best teams in the league. And I would say when you look around our division, I mean, honestly, I think our division is probably a little bit underrated. Nobody really talks about Jacksonville, but they won the division last year. They won 13 games. I think Liam, Tony Baselli, and James have done a great job of establishing a program. So we're kind of chasing them. I think the Titans are going to be very much improved. They got a really good coaching staff. They got a really, good team. One of the best defensive players in the league in Jeffrey Simmons. And the Colts always give us problems. I think every game, if I remember correctly, has come down to like one possession or a one-score game in the 4th quarter. So what's happened in the past has happened in the past. Like, we're proud of our program. We also understand the challenges that are in front of us. especially week one with Buffalo and our division. I mean, honestly, it's a little bit of an underrated division. We understand what the challenges are in our division. So try to keep the focus on the present, keep the focus on the short term, and, just see if we can put the best team together, gives ourselves the best opportunity, once week one starts here against Buffalo.
Is it fair to say potentially that you giving low market quarterback money to the guy drafted after CJ Stroud and Will Anderson, as well deserved as that contract clearly is on a team that is so terrific defensively, might have thrown a little bit of a wrinkle into your conversations with CJ Stroud, Nick?
I missed the first part of
the fact that you gave the fact that you gave Will Anderson low quarterback market money and he's the guy who was drafted after CJ Stroud. Has that created a wrinkle in your conversations with your quarterback?
No, the way we treat every negotiation, they're kind of in their own entity. So what we do with another player really doesn't have any bearing on what we do with another player.
Sure.
So we try to focus on the individual player. My job is to understand like what that market entails, and then you engage in the negotiations and discussions, and then you try to figure out, because in the end, a good negotiation was everybody feels good about what the result is. So like my job, our goal isn't to win a negotiation. We're trying to do what we feel is fair and best for the organization. So what we do with another player honestly has no bearing on what goes on, with another player.
Well, we started this interview by talking about your tenure in the Belichick world. So excuse me for asking an injury-related question. How's that for a setup? How is Tank Dell, Nick? How is he?
He's doing well, Rich. He obviously sustained a pretty significant injury there, however many months ago that was, but he participated yesterday in practice. So I'd say there's kind of a ramp up period for him, and we're just trying to do what we feel is best for him, be smart about his reintegration. But he's worked really hard. There's an opportunity for us to see him maybe a little bit more here in practice. Whether or not he plays in a preseason game or not, ultimately we'll figure out what makes the most sense. But he's worked really hard. I was asked about this when training camp started. We didn't put him on PUP or NFI because we wanted to keep him available and alive to participate in certain drills that he otherwise would not have been able to participate in. But he's very engaged. You're seeing progress with him. I'd say, we're going to probably hopefully see him a little bit more here in practice as we're moving forward through training camp. So he's doing as well as he possibly can. It's really a credit to him. It's a credit to our medical staff, our sports performance team, our strength staff for getting Tank to the position where he has a chance to be competitive to help our team.
I got two left for you, one about your team and then one just in general about the league here and rostering. David Montgomery and Woody Marks. You got Montgomery now from Detroit. We saw what he could do there as a 1-2 punch. He was kind of the two there. What will you allow about the division of running back carry labor this season, Nick?
Yeah, I think we've all seen you really need two guys that can handle the ball in some capacity. And I would say in David's case and Woody's case, I mean, they're very similar relative to their ability to potentially play on all three downs. We feel that Woody is an ascending young player, and we're glad he's here. He's at a really good offseason program. He's off to a pretty good start here in training camp. And, we have a lot of respect for David, what he's accomplished over the course of his career. He was a player that we targeted for a myriad of reasons. Obviously what he does on the field, but his professionalism, his toughness, just the leadership that he brings, that was something that we felt he can enhance our overall program. And I'd say it's been true to form here to this point. So, glad we have both of those players on the roster, and I would expect both of them to make a pretty significant contribution for us here this season.
And then lastly for you here, Nick, I mean, we've been talking about the running back market for years, and I think running backs are not paid commensurate to their value in a game. And we forget about their value in a game when it comes to rostering these guys and paying them. Why are wide receivers paid more in this game than running backs, Nick?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Rich. I think what you've seen or what I've seen, there's a cyclicality to contracts and a distribution of resources. It kind of happens in, spurts, and certain years more money is allocated to certain positions relative to others. But in the end, sometimes there's kind of a balance or redistribution here. So ultimately, teams have to make the decision about how they want to allocate resources, where to invest the money, have an understanding of what the market is, and then you're either in that market or you're not in that market. And if you're not in that market, then what's the alternative? I think that's the beauty of what we do. And, part of my job is to, it's a little bit of game. It's like putting pieces of the puzzle together. And we all understand what the salary cap is. We all have resources, how you build your team and how you allocate those resources. Ultimately, you have to make an individual decision. So, the players that are receiving these contracts, they deserve the contracts because they're really good players.
Right.
The market's the market, and the money is constantly moving around here a little bit. So you have to understand where it's going, and then look at your team and kind of figure out, all right, how are we going to distribute the resources, and where are we going to allocate? And some positions may get more than others, and I think that's just there's a natural process that all of us have to go through. And this year one way, it might be different a year from now, but we'll all find out.
No, I know, and I'm talking to a guy who's going to have to pay his quarterback if Stroud is your future, a certain amount of money, and you just paid Will Anderson, $50 million a year, and you got more defensive players, and Nico Collins is. And this, no offense to wide receivers, I'm just asking: is there something where general managers generally in this league look at, I can get a running back out of college rather than a wide receiver out of college? And then there's a certain, born on date with running backs that aren't there for receivers, just to name another position group here. There's no general sense like that from general managers in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think our job, understand where the players are coming from, what are your opportunities. I mean, I think sometimes there's a little bit, like the running back, there's a certain stigma attached to, well, if they reach a certain, age, or like, look at Derrick Henry. Like, he's worth whatever he's making, he might be worth more than. I mean, there's a great example of a guy going to the Hall of Fame. So ultimately, you just got to decide, where is the supply and demand? Where are the players coming from? All right. And then what we've tried to do is just sort of balance the contracts off. I mean, the point that you made, all the money doesn't really come due at the same time. When you do extensions, some of the new money, when that triggers and that kicks in, that could maybe affect, your team building and some of the other things. So what we've tried to do, going back to kind of your original question, this is kind of a good example of kind of taking where you are in the short term, but also balancing it off, like where you are in the future and long term. And ultimately, I mean, you got to make a decision, and where do you allocate the money? And it could be different for each team. And, ultimately it's up to them to do what they feel makes the most sense.
Nick, thanks for the time, man. I really appreciate it. Let's do this more often. I don't know. Is this your first time on the show?
I think it is, Rich. No, I really appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, good.
You talked to D'Amico. He's more interesting to talk to.
I do love him. He's great. Congrats on hitting on that hire, obviously, and everything else going on with you. I appreciate the time, Nick. Thank you.
You bet, Rich. Thank you.
You bet. That's the EVP and GM of the Houston Texans, Nick Caserio, here on the Rich Eisen Show. Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single weekday on Disney+, the ESPN app, and ESPN Radio. And be sure to now check out richeisen.shop.com to see all of our latest apparel and accessories so you can rep your love of the show every day.